Okay, here's how to do the trading profit and loss. A simple trading profit and loss, which would have been given as part of a class test when you're in second year. So first thing we do is we lay out the blank document. So you will always have this section here in cost of goods sold, opening stock, purchases. There may be other things in as that would be a cost. So I'm leaving one extra line in there. And then we've got all of our different expenses that we'll find in here. We may have an appropriation account where we have to deal with dividends, money paid out to shareholders. And then in our balance sheet, we've got fixed assets. These are things that we have that last a long time. Current assets, these are things we have at present that we're going to use up fairly soon. Liabilities, these are things that we owe, and current liabilities are things we owe that will last a short time. So that these debts that we have, we're going to pay them fairly soon. And finance by is how did we pay for actually financing or setting up our business. Okay, so we have the different sections of it. First thing we do is we go to our question, we decide where does it go in the answer for the question. So ordinary share capital 600,000, so we would have decided where do we think it goes. Well, that's finance, that's how we paid for our business. So we'll have ordinary Okay, and we'll put the 60,000 for ordinary share capital in here. Then we have sales. So sales is actually already marked. We'll have that in every question that we do. So sales is 82,470. Then we have stock 1st of January. Well, that's opening stock, so I'll put that in the opening stock section. Remember, all of these things here in our trial balance go into our answer once, except this down the bottom. This is our closing stock, which goes in twice. Vehicles, 22,000. So vehicles are not an expense. It's not something we pay for on a regular basis. It's something we have that lasts a long time. So vehicles goes here. So vehicles 22. And then we have premises, 40 grand. Well, that's also something we have that lasts a long time. Then we've got carriage in. And I notice that carriage in is down here as well. So that's obviously a printing mistake, silly me. But carriage in, so that's paying money to transport goods to me. So that's a cost of doing business. So that's added to the cost of goods sold. So the cost of getting the goods that I later go and sell. So I'll put that in here. And because we've got two numbers, I'm going to add the two of them together. So 3020 and the other one was 2600. Then we have cash at bank. So this is money that we have in a bank account. So 14890. Well, that's something we have. And so we have it and we're going to use it up fairly soon. So it's put into as a current asset. So 14890. And then we have wages. So wages is an expense. It's a regular bill that we have. And we've got salaries. We could tie the two of those together, because the two of them are pretty much the same thing. So I'm going to add these two numbers together. So we've got 420 plus salaries 13960. Bank overdraft, and that's money we owe to people. We haven't paid for it yet, so we put that as a current liability. It's a debt we owe. And that number is 18,710. Then we've got purchases. Well, purchases is listed up here. So 32,890. Now see how by laying out the question first, it makes it easier for us to put the information in. Van rental. So that's something that we pay for maybe on a regular basis. So we don't own the van, we rent it. So that's an expense. And it's 10,480. Then we've got carriage in, we've dealt with there. Machinery, 4670. So that's something we have that lasts a long time. And it's 4670. Heating and lighting, so that's an expense. So that's a regular bill that we would pay, 670. And electricity, so that's an expense as well. So regular bill 2570. And then we have insurance finally of 890. That's again another expense. Now at this stage we have to put in our closing stock. So that closing stock is already listed here, 400, and then it's also a current asset. Okay, so these are the goods we have at the end that we're going to sell next month or next year. We take them out of our cost of goods sold because we didn't sell them this year, so we'll transfer them into next year. Okay, so now at this stage we can do our maths. So we'll add up all of our assets, all of our costs here, and we'll take away our closing stock. So we have our what we call goods available, subtract our closing stock, and that gives us the cost of goods sold. We then have our sales, take away our cost of goods sold, and that gives us a gross profit. Now we move on to our expenses. So we've got all of our expenses here, and notice we've put the words or the numbers in specific locations to make it easier for us to do the maths. So when you're doing these questions, have a look at how I did my maths. Okay, so we'll add up all of our expenses together. And we'll take those expenses away from our gross profit. So we have a gross profit there, take away our expenses. Now, so here's our net profit. So we put that down here in our appropriation account. It doesn't say anything in the question about dividends. So we have dividends as 0. And the retained profit, all of the profit that was retained. And that retained profit is part of the finance of the business. And we'll call that retained profit here. So that money that the business earned, we never gave it out to the shareholders, so the business now has that put into the business, and we can use that to pay for more fixed assets or things like that that the business may want for the future. So let's just finish off up here in our fixed assets. So we add all of our fixed assets together. We add our current assets, there's only 2 of them. And our current liabilities, there's only 1 current liability. So I'll put that current liability in the total there. We'll take these 2 numbers away, and when we take the 2 of them away, we get a figure called working capital. So that's the current assets. We take away the current liabilities, and here we get a minus number for working capital. But we'll be adding that number to the figure above, and we'll call that net assets. So we have our fixed assets plus our working capital gives us net assets. We'll then add that, so we add those numbers there, and then we'll compare and see, do we get the same number when we add our financed by? So we'll add our ordinary share capital, and we'll add our retained profit, and we get the same number, so that means we've done the question correctly. So that's the basics of how to do the final account question that we discussed in class.